Good morning, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are so happy to be back with the Silent Minority. My name is Samoy Sykes, and of course, with me, as always, is Hudson Meadows. We got a
What's
full
happening?
slate. We got a full slate today, and I want to go ahead and just jump right into it. So, Aqib Talib is retired, of course, from the NFL, and he's become a coach for what is it, Little League or young football kids? I'm not
Youth
sure, but
football. Yeah.
youth football?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's become a coach for youth football, and his brother, I guess, was also helping him with it. I'm not sure how to pronounce his brother's name, but I'm going to go with Yaqib, maybe Talib is his name. So apparently they were having a game sometime last week, and then an argument ensued over the officiating in this game. And Aqib Talib's brother decided to respond to this argument by shooting one of the coaches multiple times. And he killed that brother, right? He killed the brother who was a coach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. There's just no excuse. There's no way that this is defensible. And it's crazy. I understand that lawyers have to say whatever they can to get their lawyers off, to get their clients off, but his lawyer actually publicly came out and said, "Oh, well, he was doing it in self-defense and he was defending everyone there." Stop it. There's not been a single report that has said that that coach had a gun on him or attempted to pull out any weapon of any kind. There is no way you can justify getting upset over how a game was officiated and murdering a coach in front of all of those kids. Those kids are traumatized for life. Let me tell you,
His son
having
was there.
his son was there.
His son plays on the team that he was coaching.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane, bro. That wow. Wow. Scarred for life. Scarred for life. And over what?
Yeah. The team
Over what?
president, the team president talked about how, he didn't know how he's gonna do it, but he was holding the man's son in his arms trying to console him, while his dad was just laying there dead. I mean, it was absolutely nuts. Yeah, I mean, these things. There's like 100 kids there. So,
Wow.
I mean, there's two full football teams. Some of their friends are there. People were in the stands probably. There's easily 100 some odd kids at this
Bro.
thing, and you got a bunch of adults fighting it out and scrapping it out in the middle of the field over some officiating.
That's insane. It's insane to see these grown men. That Yaqub Talib is 39 years old. How? That's 2 years older than me. How in the fuck can you be 39 years old and so infantile still that you would murder a man in front of 100 kids over the way that a youth football game was officiated?
But
That is insane.
well, this is Texas for you, because why has he got a gun there? Why is he at a youth football game with a gun? Was he there as in security capacity? No report says that. So why
No,
is it just
come
because
on
you're in
now.
Texas you need to carry a gun everywhere?
I mean,
Why is he? There's a bunch of 9-year-olds. Why did he have a gun there in the first place?
let's be honest. They do the same thing in Chicago. Brothers love carrying guns in places where they clearly should not have one. And you know what? Let me take that back, because I think there's a lot of people now who have the mentality of the places where you would think everybody would not have a gun is the exact place where psychos love to come and shoot everybody. And them psychos is out shooting kids nowadays anyway. So I don't behoove people who carry guns in events like that or in schools or things of that nature because it's already been proven the psychos are out and they're going to get you anywhere. So you need to be able to defend yourself. Why are you shooting a man over something so small? Like, why does that even come close to entering your mind? This brother decided to donate his time to teach these little kids, to try and help be a mentor for them. A black man who said, hey, let me try to do my part to make sure that these kids come up right. How can you possibly justify murdering this man in front of the kids that he was trying to mentor at that?
I don't know.
Insanity.
I don't know. But I mean, like you said, and here's the crazy part, like you alluded to earlier, his lawyer is claiming self defense already. Said Hickman, the gentleman who was murdered. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he instigated the argument. The report said that he was going for a football and somebody kicked it, and that's when it started. So, I mean, we don't know the full story, of course. There's a lot to unravel here, but you know, I mean, I get what you're saying about the crazies are out there and this and that, but you know, I just don't see it. There's times and places. I mean, where I don't. I just don't know. It seems to me if the gun wasn't there, you know, I mean, you know what this makes me think of? All these situations where these fights break out at these little league games, at these pee wee football games, basketball. I just think Lord of the Flies. I think about I read. It's one of the few things where I read the book and I saw the movie. Anybody who knows me, I either read the book or I watch the movie. I don't usually do both. But Lord of the Flies, I read the book and I watched the movie. And it just totally reminded me of the situation where, they got all riled up and stabbed that kid to death when he was just running, trying to get away from what he thought was some kind of sea monster. He
Right.
thought some kind of sea monster, so he was hysterical. He comes running away, and all these kids are riled up and hopped up, screaming and shouting, and all of that. All this adrenaline's up, and they think this kid running here is some type of monster, so they go at him. And this is all Lord of the Flies. This is all this. They should ask for money for this story continuing to play out because it's the exact same story. And I just don't get it. We get into these groups, we get riled up over a game. All this adrenaline is going, and it's meant to. It's meant for the adrenaline to go, and then just something just sparks it off, and here we go. Here we go with this.
My thing is, if I'm a member of that family, Aqib Talib is definitely getting sued. Brother, some money got to come up out of you because I'm sorry, you knew your brother was a fuck nigga. I don't care what nobody says. When you brought him, because apparently, whatever capacity his brother was there to help him. So, like, it wasn't like he was just in the stands. All right. It wasn't like he came on his own. He came with a quid to leave. All right. You knew your brother was this kind of dude, the kind of dude who will pull this kind of nonsense. And you had him helping you with this youth football league anyway. I guarantee you, if they look into the past of this brother, they're going to find other incidents of violence, other incidents of assault, other things that this brother did that Talib absolutely knew about. And there has just got to be a case where they sue his ass and they're like, bro, you brought your brother there. You allowed him to be a part of the situation, knowing at any point in time he could go off and do something like this. You got to pay. You got to pay. You got to pay. And this is the problem when you have family members and friends that you know are messed up, that have proven time and time again that they're messed up. But you want to put them in these positions that make you vulnerable anyway. I am a big believer in You should know your friends and you should know your family. I know the people that are around me. And more importantly, I like to believe I know how I can trust them. I know people who would never do certain things to me, but might do other things that I have an issue with. And I don't put myself in a position where those people could potentially do those things to me. Everybody has weaknesses, everybody has problems, and you have to be real about the problems that your friends and family have. This was a complete mess up on the part of anybody who was involved in that man being on the field.
Well, I mean, I think what's going to come out, and I mean, of course, it's all going to go to Talib and him killing Hickman. But you know what we also got to keep in mind was I think based on the foot, it was very chaotic footage, you
Hmm.
know. But I can't tell if Talib was straight in the middle of it when it started, right?
Right.
So this thing I think was going, and he just jumped in there, right?
Hmm.
So why were these people hysterical and crazy to
Right.
even begin with? It was more than just if the only thing that happened here was Talib was probably the only one in that group that had a pistol.
Right.
Imagine if all of them did. You would have had 20 pistols coming out and
Hmm.
firing because as soon as one blasts one, everybody blasted.
Hmm.
You know, imagine that, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's
I
ugly.
mean, you know, the only thing that's keeping these other people out of jail possibly right now is that they just didn't have guns on them. You
Hmm.
know, so that protected them right there. But you know, it's crazy how they were all in there, hysterical, fighting over who knows what, who knows what call for a 9-year-old game,
Right.
right? And Talib just happened to be the one to come with those kill shots, right? But
Hmm.
you know, in regards to family though, and or family or friends or knowing who you are, you know, I mean, there's been instances I will say that I thought I knew some people and how far they would go until they took it farther. You know, and I mean, you know, and I have a story that I typically tell, and it's a tame story because I don't tell the ones that are, you know, really out there,
Egregious.
you know, on this broadcast here. But I tell the tame one, which is I was in Las Vegas, and you know, and again, people knew me. People knew I wasn't involved in anything shady. I wasn't no game banger, no dealer, nothing like that. I just came out to work. That was it. I might have a drink with the fellas every now and again after work. That was it. This dude decides, you know, he's being nice. He gives me a ride home, but he decides he needs to serve a couple people on the way, right? And I'm sitting in the car, and and there was
Yo.
no thought in my mind that he would put me in that position because
Yo.
in every conversation we've had and everything that we've talked about, he knew that was nothing that I was into, nothing I wanted to be a part of. You know, I mean, basically, there was nothing in his mind would have thought should have thought to him made him think that hey, Hudson want to get involved in this. Let me show him what's going, how it's really going down. But no, and I sure enough thought that he would not, you know, try to even attempt to come at me that way. And
Mhm,
but he did.
mhm.
But he did, and it was the last ride I ever took from him. You know, obviously, like you said, I didn't put myself in that position again. I never hung out with him again because you know it's like you just out the blue just did this,
Right.
so now I have no clue.
Yep. Who
Like
are
what
you?
yeah, I have no clue what you're willing to do in front of me now. You know, next thing you might be saying, we
End up seeing a murder.
we gonna go roll up on some niggas, you know. You know, like what? Yeah, you know, they ain't pay me that last time, you know.
Right.
I think it's, you know, so you know, it's one of those things. Sometimes you just don't know until you know. And that situation had a very good chance of getting out of control.
Hmm.
Luckily, it wasn't an undercover cop. Luckily, it wasn't somebody who just went nuts and said you cheating them.
Hmm.
Luckily it didn't turn into something like that, but it easily could have off of
Hmm.
off of off of this thing. It turned out to be tame. Nothing happened, but I certainly wasn't going to put myself in a position. But like I said, that was something I would not have expected him to do to me. I
Hmm.
did not expect him to put me in that position. But I learned from it and I moved on. But again, sometimes you might not know until you know. Like I said, if that gun wasn't there, he'd have probably just been fighting and throwing blows just like the rest of them. I think so. I saw somebody taking the first down marker and slinging it around. Like I said, the footage was very
Chaotic.
chaotic, but
Yeah.
somebody was slinging something around, throwing it around. So it's one of those things where sometimes maybe you just don't know that. Maybe you think he's never taken it like
To
way
that
up
extreme.
here before. So maybe his plateau is here,
Hmm.
right? And if that was the case, he sure proved his brother wrong. The plateau is way up there,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm sure the case is going to reveal a lot of these details, so it'll be interesting to track the situation and find out how ends up. Something else interesting that came out recently. So, Block Club Chicago, they have a website where they release news articles about their investigative findings sometimes. And they've uncovered that the Chicago Police Department is actually pulling over and giving traffic stops to thousands more Black people than they are actually reporting. Because a lot of times these stops are then categorized as something else. And so it's basically found that the sharp increase in traffic stops that have happened in Chicago are almost all happening in the Black community. In fact, they specifically provide the statistic that in 2015, I think they said the full number of traffic stops was around 85,000, whereas in 2021 it had risen. I think it was 2021 that it had risen up to about 600,000, which is obviously a dramatic upswing. Now, this kind of leveled out a little bit more with the pandemic, but it's still 300,000 plus. So it's clear the people who are running Chicago have decided pulling over Black people, searching them, impounding their cars, forcing them to make bail in order to get out of jail, things of this nature, is a great way for them to stack up money and for the city to enrich itself. And they're essentially doing this off the backs of Black people. And I don't know, it's just, it's not, none of this is surprising, of course, but it's still really, really hard to read. Hudson, how did you feel about it?
Well, so what of great interest to me is and for anybody who doesn't understand, this is a law. This has been put into law. Our state legislature passed this and said these police departments have to report when they do a traffic stop and they uncover a firearm, right? Or they have to make a felony arrest or something of that nature, right? They have to report that,
Hmm.
right? So what the police are doing here in Chicago, at least, is not reporting it. So in 2021, CPD reported 388 of these traffic stops that resulted in gun arrest, right? What the independent audit is suggesting is 2,300 in 2021. That was more the number. And so you might ask, how did they come to 2,300, right? So when you look at a report, basically you look at, hey, they got charged for the gun, but what other charges did they get? And often you'll see in these cases, you see a traffic violation added on to the gun charge, which suggests to them that this all happened because of a traffic stop in the first place, right? So
Hmm.
the question's begged is, why aren't they reporting it, right? And you got to think, for even for their own safety, why wouldn't it? Like if I'm a cop, don't I want to know how many guns are being are being are being found on traffic stops? Wouldn't I want to know that?
They don't want people to know that because if you report it accurately, it shows the clear disparity in how people are policed in Chicago. Like it's already a disparity even without those statistics. But when you add thousands more traffic stops and arrests, it becomes abundantly clear the Chicago police are targeting black people almost exclusively. Like these traffic stops, I think they were saying around 85% of them are happening in the black community. Now, look, yes, the majority of murders happening in Chicago are happening in the black community. Does anybody really think the majority of red lights, of people running red lights, of people speeding, of people doing things illegally with their car are happening in the black community? 85% in the city of Chicago? There's no way. There's no way. And let's be completely honest, this city is getting less and less safe. Nobody feels safer now than they did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. All of us are deeply concerned about the levels of crime, which clearly shows that these upticks in arrest, that jailing all these people, that forcing them to pay bail and taking their money, it is not making us more safe because none of it is solving the underlying problems. The underlying problems are poverty and ignorance. You cannot stop that. You cannot fix that by locking people up. And that's the method, the process that we have been trying to do since the 70s. Hey, we've got a bunch of crime. We got a bunch of people running around selling drugs. We got a bunch of people doing things they shouldn't be doing. Let's lock up as many black men as possible, and that will fix the problem. That doesn't work. And
Well,
it
they're not locking them up effectively anyway. Because if they're being shady on reporting these things, how many of these cases are getting thrown out of court because they didn't follow legal procedure?
Mhm.
Because the police do not care about us getting convicted. They just want to pull us over. They want to fuck with us,
Quotas.
right? They don't give a damn about what happens after that. If we go and actually serve some real time, now they'll get in camera and act like that they care, and they'll go after Kim Fox and whoever else
Mhm.
about, oh, why are these people not going to jail and all of that. But how many of these are getting thrown out because they just didn't follow any proper procedure, right? They're not reporting it correctly. They're obviously not doing the job the right way. So, they, in all honesty, and I agree with you, the most effective way is to deal with the stuff at the root cause, the
Mhm.
poverty and the education and things like that, right? But scientifically, because we don't actually get convictions because we do it the wrong way, we don't know if it'll work. Scientifically, we don't
Well,
know.
black people are being are being kept imprisoned at what, 2, 3 times the rate of whites. So I think we have enough black people being arrested over the course of that period to know that it's not fixing the issue.
You're
Like
right.
if it
You're
did,
right.
these communities would be significantly safer at this point. And that's part of my issue when people try to say, well, it's about guns. We need to get these guns up off the street and then everything would be so much better, because when they say that, the methods used to get these guns up off the street oftentimes just involve locking up a bunch more black people. And even a black person who has a gun illegally, they can have a gun illegally for a whole bunch of different reasons. Even in that Black Club Chicago article they talked about, there was a guy who got locked up during one of these traffic stops because his concealed carry had lapsed without him realizing it. So when the police saw the gun under his seat, after they had searched his car essentially illegally because they had no reason to do so, they went on ahead and locked him up in jail. There's a whole bunch of people that have guns illegally, either because they are poor or because they don't feel like for whatever reason the government would allow them to have a gun, but they still need it for their own personal defense. It's not because they're out here trying to harm people or trying to do anything nefarious, but they know the wolves are out there. And so they feel the need to have something that is going to allow them to protect themselves. So this whole movement to try to say that the issues that are happening in Chicago is about guns has nothing to do with empowering the black community. It's just another way to lock up more brothers. The people who are really interested in solving the problem are the ones who are talking about poverty. If you want to help the issues that are happening, then you need to be finding ways to empower the black community, to help these people be more independent and stand on their own, not to disempower us by trying to take away one of the few ways black folks have in order to be able to defend themselves.
Well, I think we need to tell the funny story of this traffic stop, right? Not funny, it was tragic, but you know, so basically this guy, he's driving along and he stops and sees his. So let me first say, he stopped in the middle of the road. Okay, let me tell y'all how I feel about traffic. Yes, I think any of you who stop in the middle of the road need to go to jail. Yes, I do. I do. I, I, I think not enough emphasis is placed on you people who keep stopping, and half the time there's a parking space right next to you
Yep.
or right in front of you. And not only do you block the street, you also block off the parking space because you're sitting right next to the parking space. So
My brothers and sisters.
and y'all are never. And I know what y'all thinking. I'm just saying a quick hi or something like that. The conversation is never as short as you think it's gonna be. You always there forever, and you in the way. So yes, I think you should go to jail for that. Now, let me get off my
Go to
high horse.
jail, brother. Go to jail.
Yes, yes, it's dangerous. It's dangerous just to be sitting there. Think of all those. What was that story? The UPS truck or some FedEx delivery truck was sitting there, and so the woman tried to go around on her
Mm.
bicycle and got hit
Yeah.
and dragged
Yeah.
her son like 50 feet or something like that. Come
Yep.
on, this sitting in the road is dangerous. It blocks people. It takes time. And I always got to run the risk in these tight streets of trying to get through there and make sure I don't scrape somebody, right? And scrape up my own car in the process. But I digress. He stopped, right? So once he pulls off after saying hi to his friend, right? The cops pull him over and basically they say, first you were obstructing traffic, right? And then they say they accused him of buying heroin from the guy he was talking to. That was their excuse to search his vehicle, right? So, and this is why I'm an asshole, because the first thing that would have came out of my mouth is, so you pulled me over for suspecting that I bought heroin, but the guy you suspected I bought the heroin from just roaming free over there. There's no mention of them stopping the guy they think sold
Uh,
him heroin.
Hell no, that's not a traffic stop.
You
There
know,
ain't no money in that.
you could buy heroin all day. I mean, you could sell heroin all day, but buying it, nope. Buying it
Mhm.
from a car, nope. so,
Mhm.
so let me tell you, for anybody who ever sees me and I stop in traffic to say hi to you, if the cops pull me over and say I suspect, you better not have nothing on you. The first thing I'm gonna say to the cops is, why didn't you pull the guy you think just sold me something? Why are you coming after me?
Mhm.
Anyway, I digress. So they use that excuse to search the car. They find the gun, and then and this is where I have a problem because and like you said, it's stat padding. They're padding those stats because
Mhm.
anyone could have looked and said, okay, your FOIA card just lapsed. It's been the pandemic. We all know the pandemic made things haywire. That's probably part of the reason maybe he wasn't up on it. Should he have been up on it? Absolutely. But hey, he
But you
wasn't
know he's not
too
trying to
good.
keep that gun illegally. Like, they knew
Yeah,
that. They just saw an opportunity. "Oh, hey, quota, cha-ching."
yeah. You could have
Come
looked
on,
at
man.
it. You could have gave him a warning. You could have told him, "Look, you need to get this taken care of." Instead
Mhm,
you gotta run him in, impound the car, and he's got to go through all this mess for I don't know how long, for months and months off
mhm.
of this, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane, and that's the biggest point here. They are not catching criminals with this, right?
No.
Because criminals talk to each other and they let each other know that hey, them cops are out here acting a fool right now, right? Guys like you and me, we don't hear about
Mhm.
that.
No.
So we get caught up on some shit that was just an honest mistake. And we do not get the discretion of an honest mistake as some of our cohorts of a lighter shade get. That's just facts.
It's insanity. So, in that same vein, um, I think we should talk about the Jeffrey Pub situation that happened earlier this week as well. Folks, there was a lot of stuff happening in Chicago over this past week. It's been absolutely ridiculous. So, Jeffrey's Pub is a pretty popular gay club, I guess. I've driven past that spot, that area, like a ton of times. Never really noticed in this place, but apparently the gay folks in Chicago love it. And there was an altercation outside where some folks got into some sort of argument. They were fighting, and a car purposefully sped up and hit some of the people that were involved in the altercation. And the cops have come out and said, hey, we believe that this was intentional. So it wasn't like the car just so happened to be speeding and accidentally hit some folks that were fighting. No, no, no. Like the car meant to hit these folks. Now that I don't think they're actually calling it a hate crime yet or saying that it was done specifically to target gay people, but
They don't have the suspect yet.
right. They don't have the suspect yet. The guy, because the guy hit them and obviously kept on speeding away. So they're not sure what the motivations are yet, but obviously it is very, very deeply disturbing. And I'm sure it's terrifying for any gay people who frequent that club or who just live in that area in general. The stories that have come out about the people who have been impacted by this are just horrifying. A brother who was killed, I think he was about 26 years old. He had actually moved to LA because his brother had already been murdered here in Chicago, which was a devastating experience for him, obviously. And he moved to LA, and his family said he was absolutely getting his life back on track, had gotten a new job, had gotten himself an apartment. And beforehand, the family wasn't really confident he could stand up on his own. So they were really, really proud to see the type of strides that he had made. And they had had several family gatherings since the time that he had left, and he had always skipped them because he didn't want to come back here because death and destruction in Chicago. He knew the deal, but they begged him to come back for his grandmother's birthday. And then after the birthday, he went over to this club, and we know what happened. What this city does to black men is just absolutely abhorrent. And we see it happening time and time and time again in all sorts of different ways. Hudson, what are your thoughts?
So for those who don't know, the Jeffrey Pub, and I didn't know until this story came out, but Pub is one of the longest running gay clubs in the country, right? And it's
Wow,
just
really? The
yeah,
country?
one of the oldest in the
That's
country.
crazy. And apparently it's black owned, right?
Black owned, yep.
Wow.
And and it's sort of an oasis because here on the south side, I mean, there's not too many spots like that around here. So like you would have to go to the north side or wherever else to find a spot where you feel safe to be who you are.
Yeah, Boys
And
Town.
so for them, like this is like I said, this is their spot. This is the one spot that they can come to without having to travel 20 miles to
Hmm.
be them. And so, it's just crazy that this happened. Um, I saw the footage, and man, it's horrific footage. Um, of course, I'm not gonna. I didn't repost it. I didn't. I'm not putting it out there. But
And I'm
it's
sorry,
not
quick
that.
quick note before you move forward. To anybody listening, of course, some of you might want to go find the footage, but I would implore you not to share it. The family's actually come out publicly and said that it has been deeply impactful to see how widely it has been shared over and over again. And they have publicly asked people to stop spreading that footage and to stop spreading around their pain. And I would ask anyone listening to this to also do the same. Let's respect the family's wishes and what they're going through right now. Sorry, go ahead, Hudson.
Well, definitely respect the family's wishes. But I do hope one day that they can they can come to a point where they can let that footage show again, because there's something in my mind that thinks that if this driver could have went 20 seconds into the future and
Hmm.
saw the aftermath of it, or been outside of him or herself and saw it as it was happening, I gotta think that maybe they would not have gone through with it.
Right.
And I think we try to shelter people so much, try to shelter kids to a certain extent of some of these things that happen. And especially when it comes to anything within the LGBTQ community, we try to shield them away from it because we're scared that they're going to be whoever, right?
Hmm.
And so we don't share it. But, you know, I like something like that when I was very young. My dad lifted me on his shoulders to see a man who had just gotten shot in the head. And
Mm.
yes, had a profound effect on me. Had a, it was traumatizing. I had nightmares, of course, but I had a,
Firm understanding.
I had an appreciation for life. I didn't want to take it. I didn't want to
Hmm.
take it for no reason. I didn't want to, this is all, I have a feeling when we get to the end of this, get to the bottom of it, find out who did it, I have a feeling that this is one of those, it was a knee jerk reaction.
Hmm.
It was a person who had a moment, got really angry, and didn't handle it well at all, and mowed down four individuals.
Hmm.
And I gotta say, like I said, the footage really got to me very deep. And I I have passed by that area. I live semi close to the area. So, Jeffrey Pub is on 70th and Jeffrey. And let me say, that is not a good area. That is not a good area over there. That
Hmm.
has nothing to do with the gay club that's there. It has
Hmm.
nothing to do with them. It's just not a good area there. You go a little further down toward where Lakeshore Drive is about to begin, over there on 67th and Jeffrey. There's been those gas stations there have been in the news a million times of carjackings and people getting shot over there. It's that whole area is just not a great area to be in, especially at that part of night. But that's no excuse. People should be able to be able to walk and do things freely without the thought that they're going to get, just mowed down. That was crazy.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the footage as well and thought it was absolutely horrifying. It's one of the worst pieces of footage I've seen of, watching someone die. Just absolutely horrific. And I think I don't know. I don't think I agree with you that this person is sorrowful about it, because to me, if I'm sitting in that car and I see what is just like, you can't see from the car everything that's happened to these bodies you just plowed through, but you saw some of it and you kept going. You kept going like, hey, they got what they deserved. So I don't know. I'm fully expecting that when the cops find this person, it's gonna be some sort of holy roller. who's going to give us a bunch of a bunch of nonsense about how these people are sinful and they should be living their life and yada yada yada. And he was doing the Lord's work. That's what I'm expecting.
Oh, after you've done it, it's fight or flight at that point.
Yeah,
And most people gonna run from the scene, and that's what they did. You know, I mean, if they had had a chance to be outside themselves and see it before they did it, you know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that would have, even for someone who has hate in their heart, even if it was about hate of gay people, even if it was they're just mad because people, because remember we went through that time when people were mad about folk being in the street, period, for
hmm,
the protests and all the demonstrations. And there was those people were threatening laws about, you could run over protesters if they're blocking the street, things like that.
right,
So there was
right,
also that too. It could have been something as simple as that. But,
hmm.
even still, when they're in the moment and it happens, it's done, they're just getting away. Right.
That's it.
Had they saw it beforehand, even with all that hate or even being mad, I got to think that they
Mhm.
couldn't have brought themselves to do it had they actually seen it beforehand and been like, no, I can't do that to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough, man. It's a rough situation, and my prayers definitely go out to everybody involved. This is going to be traumatic for a lot of people for a long time to come. My hope is that the business can continue to survive through this. You know, it's always touchy to see whether or not people come back, to see whether or not people
Well, let's
can.
find this. Let's find this person, right? I mean, they found the
Yeah,
car four blocks away.
yeah,
Let's find this person who did it. This car has plates. It has, it has a VIN number. It has
yeah,
city stickers, all that. You can't tell me. So you at least know who owns the car. So let's
hmm,
start there. Come on.
yeah. Definitely, we want these people to get justice. Praying for her healing for the family and praying for that business that's been such a source of inspiration for a lot of people who need it in that area. Hopefully, it can continue to stay afloat and they'll be able to continue to come there and have a good time on their own. Um, Last topic of the day that we both found interesting. So in Atlanta, there was a disagreement between a young woman and a police officer, where basically this police officer had given a ticket to a woman and this individual, and I don't have their names in front of me, but he told them that they needed to sign the ticket and they were uncomfortable with it. Oh, well, I'm sorry. The man signed it, no problem, because he knows the deal. He's probably been through this before. Hey, I'll sign it, whatever. The woman felt deeply uncomfortable with signing this ticket and basically asked for the man's badge number and repeatedly signed the ticket until it was made clear to her that if you don't sign the ticket, I'm going to arrest you. Now, in an interview after this whole situation, when they asked like why wouldn't you sign the ticket, she made it clear that she was afraid, that she had never been in a part of a situation like that before, and she felt deeply uncomfortable with signing a document when she didn't understand the implications of what that signature would mean. So she was basically, from her standpoint, she felt like, I'm asking for clarification of why I have to sign this document. I don't believe I should have to do this. By the time she agreed to sign the document, or sign the ticket rather, the police officer had completely lost patience and made it clear that he was going to arrest her. She felt like that was deeply unfair, struggled back, refused to put her hands behind her back and said, just let me sign the ticket. I don't want to be arrested. And he was not having it, struggled with her down to the ground. I think he put a tase gun on her as well. And finally, they did end up arresting her. The Atlanta Police Department has released the body cam footage of this incident, and they stand behind the officer, basically saying, if we tell you that we're going to arrest you if you don't sign this ticket, and you decide not to sign this ticket, we have the right to arrest you. If you resist, and refuse to put your hands behind your back, when we tell you to put your hands behind your back, you could potentially get paid, tased. It just is what it is. And this has caused definitely a large uproar in Atlanta, with a lot of people saying that the woman has been treated unfairly, that her rights were violated, and that the questions and the hesitation that she had regarding signing this ticket were not unfair. Hudson, what are your thoughts?
Why do we have to sign tickets? Yeah, for what purpose, other than to create conflict, do we have to sign
Mm,
tickets?
great question, sir. Great question.
It's no like if there's no absolutely no reason that I can see, that I got to go and sign this thing after I don't like you anyway because you just stopped me, pulled me over, did whatever. I
Hmm.
don't want to talk to you. You tell me I got to sign this thing, and absolutely, what the hell am I signing?
Right.
What am I signing? And why am I signing it?
I don't understand, like, what kind of tickets do you have to sign? Because I've been pulled over for running a red light before. I didn't have to sign the ticket. The officer came, got my ID, came back, gave me back my ID, and gave me a ticket and said, "I'll see you in court if you try to fight this ticket." And I sure did show up to court, and he sure did come right to the front, like, "No, no, 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 no. He's got to pay this." And like, there was no signature involved whatsoever. So, what kind of tickets do you have to sign? Or
I,
is that maybe something that varies from state to state? Like maybe in other states you do have to sign a ticket when you get stopped, get a traffic stop? I'm confused.
I would assume so. I would assume that's definitely got to be a city to city, state to state thing. But signing tickets, that's absolutely crazy. But
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
I I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier with all those traffic stops. People are just skeptical automatically when an officer approaches. Part of my
Hmm.
fear in Chicago is not just the crime; it's police.
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't know what they're going to do in certain situations. So, you know, so the timeline, yes, she did ask for the name and the badge multiple times. I suppose in his view, she was just stalling, which I guess was
Did
his.
he provide his name and his badge number?
He did a couple times, and so but I couldn't tell if she just, sometimes when you do things, you just kind of you, you're trying to pay attention, but you're nervous at the same time, and maybe that's what it was that she didn't remember it any time that he told her, right?
Hmm.
But you know, the police are going to say that there's, of course, within the legal, whatever legal statutes and rules that they have, that he followed it. And I'm sure he did. But what we often complain about is discretion, right?
Right.
My question is, I got lots of questions about this. Like if the park was closed, why were they there? How could they have been in there if the park
Hmm.
is closed? Right? Do you need to give everyone a ticket just because they were in the park? Can you just tell them park is closed? I need you to exit. Why does everybody need to get a ticket? Is every white person getting a ticket? Is this a park that only black people pretty much go to because it's in a black neighborhood?
Hmm.
So
So my understanding, um, I believe what I read in the article is that there's been an increase in there's been a greater focus in trying to ticket regarding these things because there have been more murders recently in that area. And I think we all know there's been a significant uptick in crime and murders, period, in Atlanta, which the police are trying to fight back against. Here's what I find weird about the situation: but it's a man and a woman and they're not identified, so we don't know if they're a couple or they're siblings or what, right? But let's say for a moment this they're a couple, all right? The guy knew what was up and just signed the ticket. He was like, look, I know the drill. The woman is scared and she feels like she doesn't understand what's going on. Why didn't her man step in and show some leadership and be like, hey, baby, this is what's going on. It's okay. Just sign the ticket. We'll deal with it later. Let's all move on. Like, I don't understand that part. Like, she's wigging out and asking this officer the same question over and over, which is going to piss him the hell off. Why is her man not stepping in like, whoa, look, let me take control of the situation? Baby, you don't want to do this. All right. This is not how it works. You got to just go on ahead and sign that ticket because I know you don't want to go to jail. You've never had that experience before. You don't want to have that experience now. Go ahead and sign the ticket, and then we're just gonna move on with our lives. It's gonna be okay. Like, I don't understand the whole idea of letting her freak out and then getting upset with how the officer treated her. I also don't, I'm sorry. I just, like, I understand that there's probably a problem here of black people being over policed, of black people not being given discretion that would probably be given to white people. And I definitely feel like that's part of the problem. But I think it's hard to justify that the officer really treated her poorly or did something wrong here. Like, you don't have the right to try to get me to answer the same question over and over again and stall in 1,000 different ways to prolong this situation when we both know you were doing something you had no business doing. Like, maybe I should have let you off. Maybe I really didn't have to ticket you, but I decided to ticket you. And there's nothing you could do about it right here, right now. So sign the damn ticket and move on with your day. For her to try to make this a whole thing and try to tell him you don't have the right to do this to me and basically try to prevent him from being able to ticket her, you can't handle it that way. Like, I'm sorry, especially as black folk, we know sometimes when you're dealing with police, it's just going to go poorly. It's just not going to go your way. And when you know you're in that type of situation, you got to eat crow. You got to eat crow and move on with your damn day. Now, maybe the next day you file a complaint, you get yourself a lawyer, you fight the issue, you go to the media, tell them about what happened, tell them about how poorly you were treated, et cetera, et cetera. But in the moment, when you're actually dealing with that officer, you got to eat crow and chill and do what you need to do to ensure certainly don't get killed and that you don't get arrested. And it's readily apparent that she didn't approach that situation that in that way. She tried to approach it like she had some measure of power, but you don't. You don't have power in those types of situations, and you have to accept that.
Well, so to piggyback on that interesting thing, right? If you look real close at that video, he did hesitate for a second and was
Mm-hmm.
about to ask, I got sign it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if two people who possibly have been living there their whole lives or a good chunk of their lives did not know that they were supposed to be signing tickets. Is this a new thing?
But he
That's
knew
one.
what but he knew what to do.
It maybe so, but
I
you
don't
know,
like this. This seems weird, but you know what? I know it ain't gonna go no other way. I know what the alternative is, and I don't want no parts of that. So let me go ahead and sign this damn ticket,
I
and
mean,
I'll get a lawyer tomorrow.
what she's really guilty of is trying to is just not asking in the right way or saying the right things. And I'm sure that's out of nervousness, possibly, or because the question then it becomes, well, what exactly am I signing here, officer? And that's the question that never exactly came out.
Hmm.
That's the thing that that she's busy on. She let a whole bunch of different things distract her. The fear, the things he said, trying to let him know that he's not going to just force her to sign something. You
Right.
know, I'm a type of individual where I stay more focused. What exactly am I signing here, officer? What
And
is
I
this?
and I think that becomes the problem. You can't in most situations, you can't tell police what you're not gonna do. Like, it just doesn't work like that. That only works for white folks and lawyers. All right, like very very rarely, or if you are in a situation with a police officer and y'all are not being recorded, can you, the officer, just say, okay, this is what you're gonna do, and you just be like, nah, I ain't doing that, bro. Like that's gonna get you arrested. It's gonna get you arrested every single time. And even if you are in the right, oftentimes you will have no recourse. You will get no justice. It just is what it is. This is why I stay away from cops. I try to do a very, very good job of making sure I am never in a situation where I have to deal with police because I know it is very easy for that shit to go poorly. But if you end up in that situation for whatever reason, you got to accept the circumstances you're in.
Well, that leads to the other thing. Did she go to jail for not signing, or did she go to jail for mouthing off? Right?
Both.
And
Both.
well, I would argue that she went to jail for mouthing off. You
I
know,
mean,
I
yeah.
I think that again, I'm a different kind of person. Because
Mhm,
I'm the kind of person. I've been, ma'am, what exactly are you trying to ask? What are you
mhm.
trying to get at?
Right.
Let's wrap this up. What are you trying to find out? What do you need? And
And that's
I'm the type to have that kind of patience and talk to people because I don't want to, because he ran both their IDs.
right.
So again, when I talk about discretion, we're talking about he clearly didn't see anything in their record, or lack thereof of a record, that
Abs-
said that they were dangerous, that they were bad people.
mm,
In fact, I'm willing to bet he saw that they were just regular old citizens,
Yep.
right? Causing no problems anywhere. And this is where I have to use my discretion and say, okay, this woman might be mouthing off a little bit, but am I really going to take it to this level because she's mouthing off? How about try to find out what she's mouthing off about? What
Mhm,
is going on here? And that's the
mhm.
type of person I am, right?
Yeah,
And to me, that's the type of officers we need,
that's
right?
true.
This is not what we need. These guys who keep trying to seem to everything is seem like he's just trying to prove that you're going to sign this, you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do, or you're going to go to jail,
Mhm.
right? And I've seen too many videos. I follow the Young Turks. I follow these guys who go to these federal buildings and all these police stations, and they record them. Oh man, those cops go crazy over it.
That's true.
They go crazy over it.
That's
But
true.
because these guys that's going and recording are white, they don't end up getting what they would get if it was us. But they do get threats, and it does get mighty close sometimes.
Mhm,
But these guys are all, you give me your ID or else.
mhm,
It all starts there. I want your ID now or else.
mhm.
And boy, they go nuts when you tell them, no, I'm not giving you my ID. They go absolutely nuts. I have a
Mhm,
right to film right here.
mhm.
If you don't want it filmed, hide it.
Mhm.
I, They explained to him a million times that's the law. Whatever
Mhm,
you want to keep confidential, you have to hide it. That's your responsibility.
mhm,
But it's a public building. I can film out here. You
mhm.
know, they go absolutely crazy. And that's what it is. They always want you to do what they want you to do. These aren't the type of officers we need. It's not the type of training they should have, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't make you a pushover just because you decide to talk to a woman who probably doesn't have a record, has probably been a decent citizen
Mhm.
for most of her life, right?
Mhm.
So why couldn't he have used some discretion here?
So do you feel like the department should have punished them?
At the very least, I think some retraining. Like I said, I'm not into punishing people for something that they didn't tell them was wrong to
Mhm.
begin with, right? And in this case, like I said, their rules and regulations, I'm pretty sure gave them what, when you have discretion to go one way, you have some discretion to go the other way. He went
Right.
the other way, but he had that discretion to do it. Now, what I would suggest is that they sit them down and do some retraining and tell him a bunch of different better ways he could have handled that.
Mhm.
because I don't think he should get a stat or a reward for an arrest here on something on something like that. You know, it's like when you play basketball and you're doing okay out there, but you're not making outstanding plays. You know,
Hmm.
you're doing just enough that the team's not quite losing because of you, but you're not really adding anything to the success either. You're just kind of out there on the court, right? And that's what this officer is. He's just kind of out there on the court.
Hmm.
You know, he's not this. These weren't hardcore criminals, or
Right.
else he would have came back at them after he ran their IDs much differently than
Hmm.
he did.
Hmm.
So he didn't just caught a woman who was mouthing off. Are these the dangerous criminals that we were worried about in the parks that's been shooting people? Absolutely not.
Right. Right.
And because somebody's been in the park shooting people, we're now punishing those who have not done the shootings. We're punishing those with jail time
Mm.
that
Hmm.
have nothing to do with the shootings that were happening, more than likely.
Hmm.
While the actual shooters were like, oh, okay, the police heavy here. We gonna go somewhere else.
Same thing
Because
that's
make no
happened in
mistake, as
Chicago.
soon as they found out, oh, y'all gonna be here, we gonna go over there.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
by y'all being in those parts, y'all have basically said we're not gonna catch any criminals.
Mhm.
Not any real ones. You're gonna catch this woman who was mouthing off. Come
Mhm.
on, come on.
It's rough, man. It's rough. So it'll be interesting. I'm definitely tracking what's happening in Atlanta. It's interesting to me to see. Looks like they are now on track to have a higher murder rate than we have here in Chicago, and it's always unfortunate and frightening to see yet another black community going in the wrong direction. So
Well,
hopefully.
I mean, look at it. They're employing the same dumbass tactics that we are here.
Mhm.
I mean, what's the first thing we did when when those things started happening in the parks downtown or in their flashy areas in the
Mhm.
city? Now all of a sudden they want to impose the curfew. You know, they want to do all this now when it's the same dumb tactics that
Mhm.
don't get to the root of any of the problems. The same roots you were talking about earlier in the show.
Poverty and education.
Yeah,
Nobody
we
wants
got
to
to
deal with it.
yeah, and so you keep employing these same dumb tactics. Let's put a bunch of police in this area and bother regular citizens.
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
let's
Mhm.
arrest some law-abiding citizens. Is basically what this dude did. He
Mhm.
arrested a law-abiding citizen
Yeah.
because she mouthed off.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when we pivot or when things start getting better. But that is all the topics that we have for today. I hope that all of you all have enjoyed this show. We are still working on improving more things in the back end. So we will be providing you all a way to be able to send in your comments, your feedback, both positive and areas of opportunity. So give us some time. We're going to build all that out and give you a way to be able to reach us. But until then, my name is Samoy Sykes. With me is Hudson Meadows, and we
Yeah.
appreciate and we appreciate everyone who stopped by to listen to us. You all take care.
Peace.